Hi, we're going to try to do it a little better now. I think last video my sound was a little bad. There is a little echo in here, but I also kept turning away from the microphone, and I think that caused some problems. I'm gonna do it much closer now. Hopefully this works well. Just a quick thing about some different shapes and some markings, and some of this we've talked about in class, and some we haven't. So there are four-sided figures, quadrilaterals. There are a bunch of them you're probably familiar with: squares, rectangles. Most people know parallelograms and trapezoids. A little more common, and then a kite. Actually, most of you probably know it, but a lot of geometry teachers don't teach it, or at least I didn't for a while. But it's and so the question is, can you identify all of them in this particular one? And I'm probably going to throw up a question really quickly, so I'm just going to pick one and make it A. And can you tell me what we'll call this one A? Can you tell me what A is? Okay, so A, it's those two sides are congruent. Those little tick marks means they're congruent. They're the same length. So if that's 8, that's 8. That's 4, that's 4. One tick mark and one tick mark means those two to go together. Two tick marks and two tick marks mean those two go together. So my A there is a rectangle. So that's my answer for A. I'm going to do one more, and then we'll go through the rest of them. So I'm going to, let's see, which one do I'm going to pick out? I'm going to pick out this one. I'm going to say this B. Okay. So what is B? So B, these little things that look like arrows are actually parallel marks. So that means they're parallel. Doesn't mean it's a parallelogram, because these other two marks just mean these are congruent. And so this is actually a trapezoid. It's actually a special kind of trapezoid. It's called an isosceles trapezoid. Isosceles typically means two of the sides are congruent. So this is, it is a trapezoid, but it's a special kind. And take a minute and see if you can't find the other trapezoid in the group. So this is the other trapezoid right here. And once again, one set of parallel lines. A lot of books will say exactly one set of parallel lines to make a trapezoid. And in this case, I've got one side that's one length and this other side's a different length. And I've got these things here to tell you that those are at right angles. Let's look at the rest of them. So do you see one on there that is just a quadrilateral? Like it doesn't fit any other of the definitions. And so this badly drawn little rock down here, this is supposed to be my quadrilateral because it just has four sides. And that's literally what quadrilateral means. Quad means four, lateral means sides. So that one right there is my Q. That's just a quadrilateral. It's not a square. It's not a rectangle. It's not anything else. It just has four sides. It's not marked at all. Do kite. That's the easiest one. So kite is this one right here, and most books define it as one that has two adjacent sides that are congruent, and then two other adjacent sides that are congruent. And it obviously has to be a quadrilateral, but I've got two adjacent sides. Those are marked as congruent. So like that's 10 and 10, and those two are marked as congruent, like 5 and 5. And in fact, I'm gonna mark this on here. So let's say, in fact, I'm gonna change my numbers. Let's say that's 6 and 6, then that would be 4 and 4. Because I just want you to know that those marks mean that those measures are the same. So if I learn what one measure is, I know what the other measure is. Let's see. What is this one? Okay. That one right there is just a parallelogram. Okay. Two sets of parallel sides. And the way it's typically marked is I mark one side with one set of arrows and then another set of sides with two sets of arrows because I'm trying to show, hey, these two match up and these two match up. Now, in some configurations, you might have because of you got some word picture, you might have another line somewhere out here, and it's also got two arrows on it because you're trying to show, hey, all three of those line up. That's not an uncommon figure. So once again, we're reviewing shapes, but we're also learning about these markings. Finally, we got what we haven't done yet. Oh, square. Square hopefully is obvious, but it's actually not only it really needs to be marked this way for you to know. If it just has the four sides congruent, not necessarily a square. If it only has the four right angles marked, it's not necessarily a square. If it's got both marked, it's definitely a square. If it only has the sides marked, what is it? Well, if maybe these aren't, so if I pushed it over so it looked like that, because that's the same thing, but it's more obvious that these corners are not right angles. Some of you will recognize that as a, oops, I'm going to call that RH, because that's our rhombus. Okay. Did I just spell? Oh, I don't have rhombus listed anywhere. Oops. Yeah, you wouldn't have gotten that one anyway. Rhombus. So a rhombus is kind of like a pushed over square or a slanted square, or you can think of a square as a rhombus with 4 right angles. Finally, if the square only had the 4 right angles, what would it be? Well, in this case, if it didn't have anything marked and only the 4 right angles, it would actually be a rectangle. It's like, well, I don't know about the sides, but there is a way if you've got 4 right angles. The last ones. Oh, I forgot to mark this one. This one's parallelogram. Okay. Last one is this. What is this? I've got 2 sides marked congruent and 2 other sides marked congruent, but I don't have the corners. So it looks kind of like a rectangle, but without those corners marked, I don't really know. And there's a way to prove that that's actually a parallelogram, but we'll get into that later. It's not as marked. It might be a little hard for me to just say it's a parallelogram. Probably needs to look more like that. But there's a way to say, hey, if I have those properties, it's actually a parallelogram. Okay, that is probably all my time. Thanks for listening. Bye.